In this video, I'm gonna show you a 12-minute conditioning workout that I did with my homie Andrew, and you can do it too to help level up your grappling gas tank. I'm also gonna show you the 3-part framework that I use with grapplers all over the world to help them feel and perform their best, so that way they can lift heavy and roll hard. This framework is called the Performance Trifecta, and it all starts with your skills.
Your skills are gonna be your technical knowledge and application of jiu-jitsu. We've all been in that position before where there's that old head at jiu-jitsu. He's a black belt. He's been training for over a decade. He's really not in the best shape. He's not going to be running any marathons anytime soon, but he could still roll and spar jiu-jitsu for an hour straight and not really be that tired afterwards. It's not because he's a better athlete. It's because his level of skills is so much higher. He's able to be more efficient in all of his movements and do a much better job at conserving his energy. Now, the second thing that we want to look at is tactics. Your tactics are essentially how you leverage the rules of competition in relation to your skills. So we've seen matches where someone may come in and they have a really high level of skill, but they go into the match with the wrong game plan or the wrong tactics, and they end up wasting a lot of energy. For example, if you're going to compete in a competition like the IBJJF, which does not have overtime, you're going to have a different game plan on how you conserve your energy versus competing in a competition like ADCC or EBI, which does have very hard and very grueling overtime periods. So we're not really going to get too much into how to improve your skills or how to improve your tactics in this video. Those are things that you can work at with your coach while you're at jiu-jitsu. Now, the next thing that's going to help you improve your grappling performance is going to be athleticism. Athleticism refers to your physical capacity to be able to use your skills in combination with your tactics to ultimately perform your best. And what's great about athleticism is that if you can improve your overall athleticism for jiu-jitsu, you're gonna have so much more that you can give to improving your skills and implementing your tactics in a match. Now, what we're going to work on today with Andrew in this workout is working on work capacity. You can also think of work capacity as your general physical preparedness. And the great Louis Simmons would always say that a pyramid is only as tall as the width of its base. And your work capacity and your general physical preparedness is kind of like your base of athleticism. So if we have a pyramid here and we have a really short base like this, we aren't really able to get that high up on the level of athleticism. Our peak athleticism is limited by how wide our base is. But if we spend some time building up a huge base of work capacity and general physical preparedness, we can achieve a much higher peak of athleticism because we did the work to build the base right here. So for this workout, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on increasing Andrew's work capacity. So that way, as he continues to train jiu-jitsu, as he continues to enter into more competitions and pursue the sport that he loves, he has more general physical preparedness, he has more work capacity to train, he has more work capacity to develop skills, improve his tactics, and ultimately perform better on the mat. This first part is going to be a little bit of an extension of the warm-up. So Andrew, what I want you to do is I want you just to bike for 60 seconds, and I want you to focus on the first 30 seconds being at about 50% of your intensity, and then towards the end we'll have you ramp it up just a little bit. And what we're going to focus on is keeping track of watts, and the watts that you get in this 60 seconds will give us a little bit of an indicator of where we should be for the rest of the workout. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and get started. We'll do a minute. First 30 seconds or so, keep it pretty chill at about 50%. Breathe in whatever way feels most comfortable for you. All right, go ahead and bring it up to about 80-90% intensity. All right, and time. Awesome. So your watts on that one towards the end at a higher intensity hung around mid 600s.
Okay.
And so what we're going to do for this workout is we're going to do 6 rounds, 1 minute on, 1 minute off. This is what is amazing about this workout is it only takes 12 minutes. So you can do this as a quick workout. You can throw this at the end of one of your strength sessions, but it's going to be 60 seconds on, 60 seconds off. During the on intervals, I want you to focus on a few different things. I want you to focus on nasal breathing the entire time. At any point, if you start to feel like you're going to start exhaling out of your mouth or breathing in and out of your mouth, go ahead and bring your pace down to get back to nasal breathing.
Okay.
The other thing I want you to focus on is, since we're going for a full minute, I don't want you to come out the gate super hot and then have your pace fall off in the middle of the round. So if you can only sustain, 400 watts for 60 seconds, I'd rather you stick at 400 watts than coming out the gate hot at 650 and then dropping down to 250 as you get fatigued.
Got it.
Now, the other thing to keep in mind, and I'll be keeping track of this as I'm watching you go through this workout, I want you to try to keep the same output or hit the same watts across all 6 rounds. So Mark has talked about for years that your last rep should look just as good as your first rep. We're kind of taking the same approach with this conditioning workout. A lot of times grappling athletes will make mistakes where they do interval type workouts and they go super hard in the paint, like the first 2,
right,
and then they kind of blow their load and they can't keep up the same output for
right,
the next 4. So this is week 1 for you, so we'll keep it pretty conservative this week. All 6 are gonna stay at the same intensity. And then lastly, on the off rounds, I know some people will have a lot of questions about this. During the off interval, you're just gonna be at a complete rest. So no active biking.
okay,
Focus on nasal breathing as much as you can. I might ask you a couple questions about how you're feeling, but when you guys are doing this at home, 1 minute on, when it's on, it's on. And when it's off, you're just hanging out, chilling, getting your heart rate back down and getting ready for the next interval. So, you ready?
yep.
All right, let's get to it. Let's get the settings here and go. 60 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and time. So go ahead and focus on nasal breathing. I'll give you a little bit of feedback on that interval. At your highest, you're around 529, and then towards the end, you started to drop a little bit closer to 400. So you may have gone a little too hot out the gate on that one. So for this next one, let's aim for between 350 and 400 and see how you go.
And so even on the break, you want nasal.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah,
I gotta
nasal
work a
breathing as
lot
much
on
as
that
you
then.
can. What's great about nasal breathing is that it's a great indicator to know if you went a little bit too hard. If you feel like in your rest period you start mouth breathing again, may have gone a little bit too hard on the previous work interval. All right, here we go. Another minute starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, begin. Time. Nice job. That was way better. You held much more consistent wattages on that one, hovering around like 385 for most of the interval. Towards the end, got real close to 350, but that is that's much more consistent and a lot closer to the intention of this workout. We'll rest for a minute, and then we'll hit it again. 3, 2, 1, begin. Same thing, looking to hold between 350 and 400. And time. Nice job. That was a great interval, man. Good stuff. So now we're halfway through the workout. So if you're doing this at home and you're still trying to figure out what your paces should be or what your total output should be for intervals like these, once you hit the halfway point, you should feel like it's going to be a struggle to maintain that same wattage for 3 more rounds, but still doable. If you feel like I have no freaking idea how I'm going to survive and do 3 more intervals at this wattage, you probably started the workout a little bit too hot and need to dial it back a little bit. And that's where nasal breathing can be a great indicator of that. If you can nasal breathe 1 minute on, 1 minute off at a great work capacity throughout the course of this workout, you're at a really good pace to make some good progress. So 15 more seconds, so we'll hit it again. 1, begin. Here we go, same thing, aiming for 350 to 400. Rest. Nice job. That was probably your most consistent interval. Everything was between 350 and 370. Awesome. We got 1 more to go. Try to focus on bringing your heart rate back down, getting back to nasal breathing in and out of your nose as much as you can, and then we'll hit this last one. Oh yeah?
I've been over 40. It's like playing pool with a rope.
All right, here we go. We got 15 seconds, and then we're hitting the last set. 3, 2, 1, begin. Here we go. Over 350, that's what we're holding. Halfway there, don't let it drop under 350. You got it. There we go. 15 seconds, hold it for 15 seconds. Excellent work. That's it. Bring it back over 350. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and time. Woo! Good stuff, man. How was that?
Told myself, don't come out the gate too hot.
Yeah. The first time so I have almost all my athletes, not all of them, but a lot of my athletes run a workout very similar to this in their preseason, either as they're coming off of an off season or maybe they've been out of jiu-jitsu for a little bit, rehabbing an injury. Before we throw them into training camp, I'll have them do several weeks of this, and almost everybody says the same thing, like, no, I hear you, coach, I'm not going to come out the gate too hot, but sometimes you just can't help yourself. And so this is a really good indicator, or a really good way to kind of teach yourself, okay, how am I going to maintain a solid pace that I can repeat for a minute straight and keep doing that for 6 rounds in a row. So awesome job, Andrew, you killed it. Let's go ahead and head back to the whiteboard, and I'll show you guys how you can progress this into your own training program. Now you can use this in your training.
If you love to lift heavy and roll hard, plus you want to learn how to truly feel and perform your best every time you go to the gym and every time you step on the mat, then this is for you. I'm giving away my brand new training program, Grappler Accelerator, completely for free. It has everything you need to help you kickstart your grappling athleticism, including minimal equipment workouts designed to help you build strength and improve your conditioning, a simple and clean diet plan, a complete recovery guide, and a bunch of other dope stuff. Go to thestrengthmatrix.com/grappler or click the link in the description below to get the Grappler Accelerator training program completely for free. Now back to the video.
There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. You can do this as its own training session. You can throw this at the end of a strength session. As far as how many times per week you could do this, if you're doing a ton of jiu-jitsu, like if you're going to jiu-jitsu 6 times a week, probably only need to do this once a week. Mm-hmm. If you're training less than 4 times a week, you could probably do it twice a week. So play around with, a good balance of how much jiu-jitsu you're doing versus how much off the mat conditioning you're doing. As far as how you can progress this, and how I suggest a lot of my athletes progress this, is that in week 1, we're really looking to find like a good average pace that you can hold across all 6 of those intervals. Then once we have that average pace, and we're using watts to measure, you could use calories, you could use, if you're on a rower, you can do, like how many meters you complete in each round. Once you find a good metric that you can be consistent with, then you're just going to increase the output a little bit each week. You're not making a huge jump. You're not trying to go scorched earth, from one week to the next, but you're just making it a little bit more difficult for each consecutive week. So in week 1, you're at 350. A good range for you in week 2 would be to make 375 the new minimum, so 375 to 400. In week 3, you can almost think of this as a challenge week. So just challenge yourself to keep every interval 400 or greater. Now, you can repeat this for 3 to 6 weeks, and I use this format for most of my athletes for 3 to 6 weeks. But at around week 3, I usually just have them use a new piece of equipment. So you use the fan bike today. You could run this once or twice a week for 3 weeks in a row. Then in week 4, jump on a skier, jump on a Concept 2 rower, jump on, if you're familiar enough with running to track your paces while you're running around a track, you can also do this with running. But I like using cardio machines because it's really easy to figure out what your pace is. For me, I don't really know how to track my pace when I'm running very well, so that's why I usually default to the fan bike or the Concept 2 rower. Now, when I usually have athletes do this, like I mentioned, I have them do this in their preseason, because this is something that we do to help kind of build up their work capacity, help get them in shape before training camp starts. Once you start training camp, you should already be in shape. If you're trying to use training camp to get in shape, you're already 6 to 12 weeks behind. So we'll run this for 3 to 6 weeks before training camp starts. So say your competition is, you do an 8-week training camp for competition, you would mark, the end of week 6 on this format to be right before you start week 1 of training camp, and then go from there. Got it. It's also important to keep in mind for everybody watching at home that this is just one form of a conditioning workout that we could use as grappling athletes. This isn't the only conditioning workout that someone like Andrew could use. This may not even be the only workout that he would use in training camp. This may be something that he uses before training camp, and then he might use something a little bit different during training camp. So just keep that in mind. You guys may look at this workout and say, I'm going to jump on that, which is great. Definitely jump on it, start working it. After about 6 weeks, try to look into some other stuff. You guys can follow me on Instagram or check out my YouTube channel at Joshua Settlage to get some more insight on grappling specific conditioning so you can continue training and improving your ability to feel and perform your best on the mat.
So as you guys could see, in between each interval, I couldn't maintain the nasal breathing. So would that be something I'd want to focus on in week 2 and not even worry about the wattage change? Like, let's say, keep it at about 350, but let's go on the off minutes, see if I can get to that, back to that nasal breathing.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I found for myself personally that it did take me a couple weeks to figure out, okay, how hard can I go and get back to nasal breathing during those rest periods. So you can even, we might make it a little bit more confusing, but you can almost move these down like this and make week 2 a repeat of week 1 and focus on exactly what you were talking about. If week 1 you can nasal breathe for the work interval, but you went back to mouth breathing during the off interval, then in week 2 just keep the watch the same, focus on nasal breathing in both intervals. Once you kind of hit that boss in the video game, you then move on to the next level. Then you try to go 370, 375 to 400, and you could even, if you find that 375 to 400 is giving you similar issues where you can nasal breathe on the on interval but struggle to nasal breathe on the off interval, then maybe run 375 to 400 2 weeks in a row and then kind of progress from there.
Got it. And then if I'm hitting this twice a week, I'm still hitting the 350 for that whole entire first week, regardless of how many times I'm exposing myself to the fan bike.
That's usually how I structure it for a lot of my athletes. When I do it for myself, sometimes if I'm feeling really good, I might push it a little bit harder. So for example, I may do, I like to train in the gym in the morning, and sometimes I go to jiu-jitsu at night. So if I'm doing this twice a week, one day, it just might land on the day where I go to the gym that follows the night where I did all my hardest sparring sessions. So I'm kind of fatigued from the session before, and so 350 may be a huge struggle for me. Now, I may do this a second time throughout the week where the previous day was a rest day, and I actually feel really good. So to get a good feel for it and push myself a little bit more, I might bump it up to 375 to 400. But when I take brand new athletes through this, or this is the first time we're using this format, I just say, do the best you can to stick to 350. If you're doing this twice a week, each time, do the best you can to stick to 350. We'll see how it goes, and then we can progress from there.
Okay, so with that busy schedule in mind, right, somebody's hitting the mats 3-4 times a week, and then they throw this on top of everything they're doing, maybe even 2-3 times in the gym lifting. I'm a blue belt, but I still ask a lot of white belt questions. So we just incorporated a pretty good amount of energy output now. Are you going to tell somebody to maybe take in a little bit more energy as far as like food calories wise to help like mitigate some of the the energy drain that you'll get from this type of workout?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, it depends on what their goals are. So if their goals are to hang on to their current body weight because they don't want to, decrease body weight and be even smaller in their weight class, or maybe their goals are like, I'm trying to just stay jacked and not, get any smaller, I'm not competing, I just want to stay jacked.
Yeah.
Then yeah, we may need to increase their total caloric intake a little bit. The other thing that I'll have athletes do sometimes where we may not necessarily increase or make a huge increase in their total caloric intake for adding in something like this, because maybe they do want to decrease some body fat. So the extra conditioning can help with that. You're using more energy, but it might have a negative effect in how much energy they have for jiu-jitsu later on. So what I'll do is I'll often have them use what I like to call the carb sandwich. So you put like 25 to 30% of your daily carbohydrate intake before and after your workout or your lifting session, and then do 25 to 30%. I guess you can cut it to 25% before and after your workout, and then 25% before and after your jiu-jitsu session. That way, with each training session, even though across the whole day you're consuming a little less calories, you still have some of those calories front-loading the training session, so you have energy for that workout or that jiu-jitsu session, and then you're immediately following it up with some calories afterwards to help you repair and recover, and then further help fuel you for the second session of the day.
And then do you pay attention to like resting heart rate as a marker of like progress as well? Or is that something that's just like cool if it happens, and if not, I'm not going to worry about it?
Most of the grapplers I work with don't have heart rate monitors, so I usually just don't even bother giving them prescriptive heart rates. There's a lot of great stuff from Joel Jameson, and he's actually been on the Power Project multiple times. He is a great resource for using different heart rate zones and managing your conditioning with using something like a heart rate monitor. If you have one, you can add that into this and get some good data to have that influence how you progress from week to week. If you don't have one, which most of the athletes I work with don't have one, it's not going to be the end of the world, but that's where I think nasal breathing can be a great indicator of intensity. If you're nasal breathing during the work interval and then you go to mouth breathing in the off interval, you might have gone a little bit too hot, or you might have done a little bit too much work. But then say you repeat 350 a second time in week 2, and then you find that you can nasal breathe through all the work intervals and all the off intervals. That's a good indicator that you've made progress in this. Got it.
Last question would be just any pitfalls in this that you see people fall into. You've mentioned, maybe going too many times with other training sessions throughout the week. Is there anything else that maybe a lot of us that are new to this might not even be considering when we start doing or implementing this style of exercise?
The biggest mistake that I see athletes make with this workout is they do go too hard in the paint at the start of the minute. So they might hit 650 for the first 15 seconds, and then they kind of crash in the middle. And I don't want to say that that's bad, but that just doesn't match the intention of this workout, where we're trying to sustain a consistent work rate across the full 60 seconds. And that's why I think it's so important that athletes go into each training session with the right intention. What is the intention of this workout? I want to be consistent, 60 seconds of work, maintain a good consistent work rate for 60 seconds, and then I'm going to stop and recover as best I can in the next 60 seconds. If they keep that in mind as they go into the workout, that'll help them avoid some of those pitfalls.
Got it.
Thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn more about how to improve your conditioning on the mat, go ahead and watch this video next.